Hello my darlings and welcome. You've found your way here, haven't you? Drawn in by that delicious, irresistible chill that only true horror can provide. We gather tonight, you and I, to peel back the layers of what terrifies us, to stare into the abyss that these cinematic nightmares have so artfully crafted. We're not just talking about jump scares or buckets of blood, though those have their place, their crude charm. No, we're delving into the very marrow of fear, the kind that seeps into your subconscious and whispers to you in the dead of night. The kind that makes you question the shadows in your own home, the sanity of your own mind. Tonight, we embark on a pilgrimage, a journey through the haunted halls of horror history. These aren't just films, they are experiences, cultural touchstones that have burrowed deep into our collective psyche. They are the mirrors reflecting our darkest anxieties, our most primal terrors. Each one, a masterpiece of manipulation, designed to unsettle, to provoke, to leave an indelible mark upon your soul. So, dim the lights, lock your doors, and perhaps hold on to something, or someone. Welcome to our countdown of the top 10 horror movies of all time. Get ready to be spooked. Consider this an invitation, a dare even, to confront these titans of terror with me, to dissect their power, and to understand why, after all these years, they still hold such a potent sway over us. We'll explore the artistry, the madness, the sheer audacity of these visions, from the demonic to the deranged, from the supernatural to the terrifyingly human. We will confront the monsters that have defined a genre and in many ways defined us. Prepare yourselves, for the darkness is inviting and the screen is about to bleed. Our descent begins fittingly with a film that didn't just shock audiences. It felt like an assault, a genuine spiritual crisis projected onto the silver screen. I speak, of course, of. Released into a world perhaps unprepared for its raw, visceral depiction of demonic possession, this film shattered taboos with an almost gleeful malice. The special effects, revolutionary for their time, weren't mere trickery, they were instruments of torment. Regan MacNeil's transformation, the contortions, the levitations, the unholy utterances, these images were seared into the public consciousness, becoming the stuff of urban legend. The spinning head, the projectile vomit of pea soup consistency, these weren't just gross-out moments, they were violations of the sacred, the innocent made monstrous. The chilling storyline, adapted from William Peter Blatty's novel, tapped into something far deeper than simple fear. It explored the fragility of faith in a secularizing world, the terrifying vulnerability of childhood, and the primal ancient dread of an evil that defies rational explanation. It wasn't just about a girl possessed, it was about the battle for a soul, played out in the most grotesque and intimate of arenas. Audiences fainted, they fled theaters, they sought solace in religion. This was more than a movie. It was a cultural phenomenon, a cinematic exorcism that left an indelible scar, proving that the devil, indeed, had the best and most terrifying tunes. It questioned the very sanctity of the home, the body, and the spirit, leaving viewers to wonder what unseen forces might lurk just beyond their own perception. From the overtly supernatural, we drift into the chillingly, terrifyingly human, or perhaps something that merely wears a human guise, John Carpenter's. Here, evil isn't a flamboyant demon, it's a blank, emotionless mask, a silent, relentless force of nature known only as Michael Myers, the Shape, as he was so aptly credited. This film didn't just popularize the slasher genre, it wrote its bloody Bible. The quiet, idyllic suburban streets of Haddonfield became a hunting ground, every shadow a potential hiding place for an unkillable boogeyman. The genius lay in its simplicity, its atmospheric dread built not on gore, but on unbearable suspense, and the chilling, unforgettable piano score composed by Carpenter himself. Michael Myers became the archetype of the silent stalker, an embodiment of motiveless malignity. He wasn't driven by revenge or passion, he was pure, unadulterated evil, a force that simply. This film introduced us to the final girl, Laurie Strode, the resourceful, intelligent survivor who would become another cornerstone of the genre. But more than that, tapped into our deepest fears of the unknown intruder, the monster who could be lurking just outside our window, his breath fogging the glass, his presence an unspoken promise of violence. It turned the familiar into the menacing, making every rustle of leaves, every creak of a floorboard, a reason to look over your shoulder. Next, we check into a place of splendid isolation, a grand, beautiful prison where a family's sanity slowly, inexorably unravels. The Overlook Hotel in Stanley Kubrick's. Jack Nicholson's descent as Jack Torrance is a masterclass in unhinged performance, a terrifying journey from frustrated writer to axe-wielding maniac. But is it the hotel's malevolent influence, its ghostly residents whispering their corrupting secrets? Or is it the crushing weight of isolation, the pressures of family, and the darkness already lurking within Jack's own soul? Kubrick leaves these questions tantalizingly, terrifyingly ambiguous, forcing us to confront the monster within as much as the phantoms without. The eerie, almost suffocating atmosphere Kubrick conjures is a character in itself. The vast, empty corridors of the Overlook, the unsettling symmetry of its design, the labyrinthine hedge maze. Every frame is meticulously crafted to disorient and disturb. Those ghostly twins in the hallway, the river of blood cascading from the elevator, the spectral bartender Lloyd serving spirits of a different kind. These are images that haunt the periphery of our vision long after the credits roll. It's a psychological horror that burrows deep, exploring themes of domestic abuse, inherited trauma, and the cyclical nature of violence, all wrapped in a chilling, beautiful, and utterly unforgettable package. The Overlook doesn't just have ghosts, it's a ghost feeding on the living. We now turn to a master of suspense, a filmmaker who played his audience like a finely tuned, screaming violin, Alfred Hitchcock, and his game-changing masterpiece. This film didn't just break the rules, it shredded them, then rearranged the pieces into something entirely new and deeply unsettling. The audacity of killing off the presumed protagonist, Marion Crane, barely a third of the way through the film in that now infamous shower scene, was a stroke of perverse genius. Bernard Herrmann's shrieking violin score became synonymous with terror itself, each stab of the strings mirroring the brutal, intimate violence on screen. But the true horror lies not just in its shocking moments of violence, but in the quiet, creeping dread that permeates the Bates Motel, and in the devastating psychological twist that redefined cinematic monsters. Norman Bates, so boyishly charming, so seemingly harmless, harbored a secret so dark, so twisted, it sent shivers down the spine of a generation. The revelation of Mother was a gut punch, a dive into Freudian depths that exposed the monstrous potential lurking beneath a veneer of normalcy. Hitchcock's masterful direction, his meticulous control over every glance, every shadow, every pregnant pause, ensured that wasn't just a film you watched, it was a film that watched. What if your worst fears could not only follow you into your dreams but could actually kill you there? Wes Craven posed this terrifying question and unleashed a new icon of horror upon the world with Freddy Krueger, with his scarred face, his razor-sharp finger knives, and his twisted, sadistic sense of humor, was unlike any slasher before him. He wasn't just a silent brute, he was a malevolent dreamweaver, turning the sanctuary of sleep into his personal slaughterhouse. The very concept tapped into a universal vulnerability, the helplessness we experience when we dream, where logic crumbles and our deepest anxieties take grotesque form. The film masterfully blurred the lines between the dream world and reality, creating surreal and unforgettable sequences of terror. Tina's brutal death, dragged across the ceiling by an unseen force, Nancy's struggle to stay awake, the tongue emerging from the telephone. These were images that combined the fantastical with the viscerally horrifying. Freddy wasn't just killing teenagers, he was a manifestation of past sins, a boogeyman born from adult secrets and neglect. It's a film that understood that the most terrifying monsters are often the ones we create ourselves, or the ones that prey on our most vulnerable, unguarded moments, making sleep itself a treacherous landscape. Prepare yourselves, because our next stop is a descent into pure, unadulterated, sun-baked madness. Tobe Hooper's is less a movie and more an endurance test, a celluloid assault on the senses. Filmed on a shoestring budget, its raw, gritty, almost documentary-like style lends it a terrifying verisimilitude that makes the horror feel alarmingly real. There's a pervasive sense of filth and decay, of a world gone completely off its axis where the American dream has curdled into a cannibalistic nightmare. It's a film that feels dangerous, like something you shouldn't be watching. The Sawyer family, or Hewitt family depending on your preferred cut of crazy, are a grotesque parody of the all-American household, with Leatherface, his human skin mask a terrifying mosaic of his victims, as their most infamous member. The film is surprisingly light on explicit gore, yet it achieves an overwhelming sense of brutality through suggestion, sound design, and the sheer, unrelenting terror of Sally Hardisty's ordeal. That infamous dinner scene is a masterclass in psychological torture, a descent into a cacophony of madness that leaves the audience as battered and broken as its final girl. It's a raw, primal scream of a film, a cult classic that proved horror could be artful in its ugliness. From the dusty backroads of Texas, we rocket into the cold, indifferent void of space, where a different kind of predator awaits. Ridley Scott's masterfully blended science fiction with pure, unadulterated horror, creating a claustrophobic, terrifying experience that redefined both genres. The genius of H.R. Giger's creature design, the Xenomorph, cannot be overstated. It was a biomechanical nightmare, a perfect organism whose structural perfection was matched only by its hostility. Its phallic imagery, its acidic blood, its horrifying life cycle, from facehugger to chestburster to full-grown terror, tapped into primal fears of bodily violation and parasitic dread, but gave us more than just a monster. It gave us Ellen Ripley. Sigourney Weaver's portrayal of the resourceful, resilient warrant officer was groundbreaking, establishing her as one of cinema's most iconic heroines. She wasn't a damsel in distress, she was a survivor, intelligent and capable, facing unimaginable horrors in the isolated, labyrinthine corridors of the Nostromo. The film is a masterpiece of slow-burn tension, of shadows and unseen threats where corporate greed proves almost as monstrous as the creature itself. It reminded us that even in the vast expanse of space, the most terrifying things can come from within. We return to Earth, to the seemingly idyllic shores of Amity Island, where something ancient and terrifying lurks just beneath the waves. Steven Spielberg's did for the ocean what did for showers. It made an everyday experience a source of profound anxiety. This film is a masterclass in suspense, famously benefiting from a malfunctioning mechanical shark, Bruce, which forced Spielberg to suggest the creature's presence rather than explicitly show it for much of the film. And oh, how that suggestion worked, amplified by John Williams' iconic two-note score that became the auditory signal for impending doom. Wasn't just a monster movie, it was a character-driven thriller with Brody, Quint, and Hooper forming an unforgettable trio battling not just a giant shark, but their own fears and obsessions. The film tapped into a primal fear of the unknown, of what lies hidden in the depths and the terrifying power of nature. Its impact was monumental, creating the summer blockbuster phenomenon, and for a time making beachgoers worldwide think twice before dipping their toes in the water. It proved that sometimes the greatest horror is the one you can't see, the one that stalks you silently, patiently, in its own deadly element. Our penultimate film takes us into the insidious world of psychological horror, where the terror is not a monster chasing you with a knife, but the slow, creeping realization that those closest to you may be your greatest enemies. Roman Polanski's is a chilling exploration of paranoia, gaslighting, and the ultimate violation of self. Mia Farrow's portrayal of Rosemary Woodhouse is heartbreakingly vulnerable, as she navigates a pregnancy that becomes increasingly sinister, surrounded by overly solicitous neighbors who harbor a terrifying secret. The horror here is insidious, woven into the fabric of everyday life in the Bramford, that grand, Gothic apartment building with a dark history. The film masterfully builds an atmosphere of unease and dread, making Rosemary and the audience question her sanity. Is she truly at the center of a satanic conspiracy, or is it merely prenatal anxiety amplified by an overactive imagination? The themes of bodily autonomy, the anxieties of motherhood twisted into something diabolical, and the subtle corruption of ambition are all at play. It's a sophisticated, deeply unsettling horror that doesn't rely on jump scares, but on the terrifying notion that evil can wear a friendly face, offer you a cup of tannis root tea, and lull you into a nightmare from which there is no waking. The true horror is the betrayal, the loss of control over one's own body and destiny. And finally, we confront a fear that often begins in childhood but can linger, shape-shifting into our adult lives, the fear of clowns, or more precisely, the fear of what a clown can represent. Stephen King's epic novel found terrifying life first in the 1990 miniseries, where Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise the Dancing Clown became nightmare fuel for a generation, and then again, in the recent cinematic adaptations, with Bill Skarsgård offering an equally chilling, yet distinctly different, take on the ancient cosmic evil. Pennywise is more than just a clown, he is an entity that feeds on fear, manifesting as whatever terrifies his victims most. The story of the Losers Club, a group of outcast children who band together to fight this primordial evil in the cursed town of Derry, Maine, resonates so deeply because it taps into the traumas of youth, the bonds of friendship forged in adversity, and the courage it takes to confront your deepest fears. Both the miniseries and the film succeeded in capturing the dual timelines of King's story, showing how childhood horrors cast long, dark shadows into adulthood. Reminds us that some monsters are eternal, but so too is the power of unity and belief. The red balloon, the storm drain, the chilling whisper, "You'll float too." These have become iconic symbols of a horror that is both deeply personal and terrifyingly universal. And so, our journey through these hallowed, haunted halls of horror cinema comes to a close. We faced demons, both internal and external, stalked silent suburban streets, and peeked behind the curtain of sanity itself. These films, these architects of anxiety, have done more than just entertain us. They've held up a dark mirror, forcing us to confront what truly makes our blood run cold. From the visceral to the psychological, they've explored the spectrum of fear, leaving their indelible, chilling marks on our collective consciousness. The lights may come up, but the images, the feelings, the unsettling questions they raised will linger, won't they? Perhaps that's the allure of horror, the reason we willingly subject ourselves to these orchestrated nightmares. It's a safe way to confront the abyss, to dance with our anxieties in the dark, knowing that, eventually, the credits will roll. These stories tap into something primal, something deeply human. Our fascination with the unknown, the forbidden, the monstrous. They remind us that even in the brightest of days shadows can fall, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us or whisper to us from our own reflections. Thank you for walking this path of beautiful terrors with me. These 10 films are but gateways into a vast, fascinating, and often disturbing landscape of horror. There are so many more screams to be had, so many more shadows to explore. Thanks for joining us on this terrifying journey through the best horror movies of all time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know your favorite horror movie in the comments below. Until next time, try to sleep well, if you can.